those moments of delivering something, an experience through food, joy through food. That's what pushes me, to wake up in the morning and being happy to with what I do.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. On the surface, Japanese and Italian cuisine may seem poles apart, but for those that have travelled to either, there are strong links to a dedication to simplicity, attention to detail, and in the use of ingredients. There are many Japanese chefs that have turned their hand to Italian cooking, and here in Australia, chefs of Italian heritage have lent on the nuances of Japanese cooking. Federico Zanellato is the chef and owner of Lumi Dining, Lode Pastries, co-owner of Restaurant Leo, and L by Federico and Karl. Federico, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Anthony.
It's great to have you on the show. You're a very, very busy man. You've opened so many businesses in the last couple of years. Yeah. What's life like at the moment?
It's quite intense and very, very busy, but it's I'm very, very happy and very looking forward to what the future will bring. It's very, very exciting time for us.
You're doing many things at the moment, but you really sort of came to light with Lumi Dining, where you delivered a very contemporary Italian offering, leaning on some Japanese nuances as well. Tell us a bit about that.
So Lumi, it's a project and an idea that started, 8 years ago now. And I wanted to showcase and bring to the public something that it was basically my life experience before opening the restaurant. So all the work experience that I've done, in the past, and show my heritage and my and all the work that I've done throughout the years. And it's and I wanted to do it with in a different way, showcasing all the best that this country has to offer in terms of product, applying all the different technique and all the skills that I've learned throughout the years, throughout my career. And it just happened. I wanted to do something that it was a bit more unique rather than doing a classic Italian cuisine. And I always had that the dream of combining the two different culture of Japan and Italy, which somehow are very similar. Yeah. For many different aspects, and there was Lumi. That's how it started.
Well, you made an incredible impact and delivered something very unique to dining in Sydney. Tell us about some of the dishes or techniques that do cross over that you presented at Lumi between Japan and Italy.
Look, I think the approach to the ingredients that both cuisine have are very similar. Somehow they both they're both very seasonal. First of all, there is very very low manipulation of the ingredients. So both cuisine really highlight the quality of the ingredients. Most of the time, there's only 2, maximum 3 ingredients on a dish. And there's a lot of umami on both cuisine from different way of aging, fermenting the ingredients, such as so in Italy we have, for example, Parmesan, which is rich in umami, and it's very popular in the cuisine. We use it across many dishes, and it brings a lot of depth and umami in the dishes. Tomato, porcini, all different ingredients that are full of umami, similar to what the Japanese cuisine have with katsuobushi, kombu, and all the ferments that they do with other ingredients such as natto and other stuff.
I want to explore all the things that you have created, because there's so many different businesses that you have now and offerings to the market. But take us back to Italy and when you were young. Where did you grow up, and what sort of role did food play for you?
So I was born. I was born in Padova, which is a small town in the Veneto region, right in the middle between Venice and Verona. And unfortunately, not many people knows it over here. I was born in a family where food wasn't unfortunately the main. How can I say the main? The main thing, because I come from a family of tailors, but there was both my grandparents were how can I say creating some kind of get together with all the family, and there was always food involved on any special occasion, such as birthday, Christmas, Easter's, where all the families used to get together, and my grandmother and grandfather used to put up a cooking show for everyone. That's probably when that was probably my first experience with food, because my parents were both very busy with their business, with their careers, and my mother unfortunately wasn't a great. She's not a great cook. My both my grandparents, they put a lot of effort and a lot of time in making sure that we always had, a delicious meal when all the family got together. And it was always something really special for me.
Can you share any sort of feasts or dishes from the region that you're from, or even from your grandparents that you remember?
Yeah. Look, where I come from, there's the region where I come from is very famous for bacala mantecato. So the whole Veneto region start trading with the Scandinavian country back in the 15th century, and they used to exchange different goods, and we used to get a lot of dry stockfish from Norway. Because it was easy to transport all the way through Europe, because it was basically a dry fish where they hang it over the winter, and then they would transport it through Europe and bring it to the Veneto region. And there's a lot of preparation with the bacala. So in Vicenza, it's basically cooked with milk, anchovies, parmesan, onion. Whereas in Venice, it's first soaked and then boiled and then whipped with a lot of oil and served on a crostino, on a bruschetta. I remember, when I was still little, we used to make bigoli. Growing up, so my grandfather would sit on a bench where they have a bronze extruder in the middle, and you push the pasta through the extruder manually. So basically, it's called bigolaro, and it's a very, very popular way of making pasta in the Veneto region. You will serve it with sardine saor most of the time, which is preparation that you do with sardine, where you preserve them with vinegar and oil and onion. There's a lot of dishes. My grandmother always used to cook lasagna, which is a classic. All the grandmothers will do, on special occasion like Christmas and Easter. She was a great cook. Both of them, gnocchi. I grew up eating gnocchi, tortellini, lasagna, all those sort of stuff that are very popular. In Christmas time, I remember my mother used to do all the different cuts of boiled meat. So we would have a hen, the tongue, different muscles of the cow, some of the intestine, and it was a beautiful feast, with all my cousins, uncles, and father, my mother, my brother, and everyone. We would sit at the table and spend the whole day. I remember, my grandfather, they would spend the whole day. They would go through lunch till dinner without leaving the table, We will go and play with all my cousin in the afternoon, and I come back at the table. All my parents would still be at the table, eating and drinking, playing cards, That those are, the great memory that I have about, getting together with the family and cook amazing food, which unfortunately we can't do it anymore here.
What lured you to a career as a chef?
Look, if I gotta be honest, Anthony, it's I cut basically hospitality school was probably the easiest option for me, and it was a school where I didn't have to be great at studying and all. I was really bad at school, math and everything. So the teachers have suggested me to go to hospitality because it was a quite easy school to get a diploma, and that's how it basically started. I had basically no passion for food back then, other than sorry, other than as I said, spending time with my grandparents, with my family. But I had no interest. I had no interest in food back then. So I've started the school, and for me it was just something that I wasn't very passionate at. But I had to get a diploma because my parents were forcing me to continue to study. But I had no interest whatsoever back then.
Take us back to the first couple of years working in a commercial kitchen. Do you have any stories of that time and what you took from it?
Yeah. So as soon as I finished school, I moved to London, and I was basically a teen when I moved to London, and it was a very very tough and harsh kind of environment, reality that I came across. It was very, very difficult. I wasn't experienced. I wasn't particularly experienced in the kitchen, and it was very, very tough at the beginning. The environment in those kitchens back then. I moved to London when I was 18 in 1998. The environment in the kitchens, in any sort of kitchen, was quite different from what it is at the moment. It was quite harsh. I got a job at the Ritz Hotel, and then I've worked in some other Italian restaurant, which were quite high-end restaurant, and it was quite tough. After 4 years that I spent in London, that I was kind of not fitting in, because I realized that it was very alienating back then. And chefs were quite angry, and it wasn't a very pleasant environment to work in a kitchen back then. So after 4 years with a friend of mine, we decided to leave London, and we start traveling in Southeast Asia. And then we ended up here. We ended up here in Australia in 2002. And I spent nearly 3 years from 2002 until 2005. And I've basically tried to get a job at every single fine dining restaurant here in Sydney, but I had no chance to get a job. I went to Rockpool when it was still, back then when I came here, Anthony, there was no working holiday, so they had to employ me legally, basically, because I came with a tourist visa, because Italians back then were not allowed to apply for a working holiday back in 2002. So I went to knock at the door. At every single fine dining restaurant in the city. I went to Rockpool, I went to Tetsuya, I went to Est, I went to Market, and I was happy to work for free, but no one hired me. No one. So and I ended up in Leichhardt, where I've met Alessandro, And I spent when I found Alessandro Pavoni, and I spent nearly 3 years here. And to be honest, I enjoy my time here in Australia, but I kind of lost the goal. I was happy with the work, but I knew that I wasn't gaining a lot of skill in fine dining back then, and I decided to move back to Europe. When I moved back to Europe, I've met my future wife. And I was still a bit lost. I was thinking to leave the kitchen, to leave the chef job, because I wasn't very focused. My mind wasn't very clear. So I've started a course of photography back in Rome for a few months, and then my wife, I think she pushed me to to what was becoming my passion, kitchen, because back then I knew I liked the job, but I think I never had the right people and the right people to direct me and pushing me to achieve something a bit more special. So I've applied to work in a three Michelin star restaurant in Rome. Back then it was Heinz Beck alla Pergola, and I got the job. I went to work for free for 6 months as a stagiaire, and then I ended up getting a job there, and I spent more than 3 years in Rome in a La Pergola restaurant, and that basically put me back in a different mindset, when I really realized, that this was my career. That I had to push hard. I had to push hard to achieve great result, and it basically I focused again on achieving and learning and improving my skills in cooking. And from then, I've really pushed harder, and I've started to study, to learn. I became curious. I became passionate about cooking. I've moved to Japan. I went to Japan and I spent nearly a year in Japan, working as a stagiaire again in some of the best restaurants in Tokyo, and then I got back into that mindset that I was a bit lost back in those years when I was traveling. But I don't regret anything that I've done. It was part of my life, and I think you need to get a little bit lost and try a few things before you find what you really meant to do in life, and that's what happened.
What brought you back to Australia?
Look, I took my wife here. We came with my wife here in 2008 when La Pergola was closed for a whole month in January. We came for a month on holiday, and that was the first time that my wife visited Australia, and she fell in love. And for the next 2 years we were thinking and planning to move over here, because the political and the economical situation in Italy was a bit unstable. And Alessandro was opening Ormeggio back then in 2010, while I was still in Japan, and we started chatting and say, why don't you move back in Australia? I've got a restaurant starting, and I need a strong chef to help me to run the restaurant, and that's how it started. So we went back to Italy. We planned to move back to Australia in 2010, And we arrived here in 2010 after 3 months Ormeggio was open. Unfortunately, when I arrived here, Alessandro had an heart attack, and he had to leave the kitchen. I came here. There was basically no one in the kitchen. I had to run the kitchen, by myself at the beginning, because Alessandro was in hospital. And it wasn't easy. I knew a bit about the whole the products here, because I was here in 2002 for a couple of years, but it was a long time ago, and I wasn't very familiar. So it took me a while, to get into the rhythm and understanding suppliers, understanding the season again, and all the produce. So, but that was very great time back then with Alessandro. When Alessandro got back, we start planning, we start working on the menu, we start working on produce, on the team. And it was a beautiful moment of my career back then. I spent 4 years at Ormeggio, and we have achieved great results together. It's a beautiful part of my life.
Do you have any stories of the connections that you made with Alessandro and what it was like working with him?
Oh, a lot of beautiful stories. Yeah, look, we first met in 2002. When Locke was the place to go for the Italians. And back then, Alessandro was trying, to offer a different type of cuisine, which was not very, very popular in Locke. It was trying to do something a bit more modern, a bit more innovative, a bit more fresh, and it was very, very difficult back then in Locke. And it was very frustrating. We were trying to push out. We had a great team of Italian chefs that they were all coming from great restaurants overseas, but the public, I think, the general public wasn't ready back then, especially in Locke, where it was all first or second generation Italian. They wanted something a bit more traditional and classic. But it was still very successful. But we were also trying to enjoy ourselves back then. So we were going early morning. Like we used to wake up super early, 5:30 in the morning. We used to go for a surf together, drive all the way up and down the coast, up in the northern beaches to find the best waves. It was very different, back then. And then jumping back in the kitchen at 9 a.m. It was something quite unique, and especially for me coming from London, where I used to get in the still dark in the morning and leaving the kitchen at night time, and it was still dark, and I would never see the sunlight for the whole week. It was something quite different, waking up early in the morning, going for a surf, and you would jump in the kitchen with a different energy, different mindset. It was beautiful. Then when I came back at Ormeggio, it was a bit more tricky because Alessandro was starting to recover, and we really wanted to focus to take the restaurant to another level. So we were really working hard every day. The surf was a bit more sporadic. We were still going every now and then, but both of us were really focused on pushing the restaurant, to another level. So we spent days. We were basically at the beginning, I was living with Alessandro for the first year and a half. And our day off was just spent on books, reading, researching. What do we do? Test trials, trial at home, cooking, going to the restaurant, doing testing every single day, non-stop. It was just, trying to push and take the restaurant to another level.
These days, you've teamed up with another incredible, influential chef, Karl Furler, with 2 venues. Tell us about that relationship and how this came about with Restaurant Leo and then El.
Yeah, look, I've met Karl probably, I would say, 5-6 years ago. I've met him because he was a customer of on Lumi, and I was a customer of Oscillate Wildly back then. We were both going to each other restaurant, and we had huge respect for what I think for what both of us were doing. And we've always kept in touch and discuss about the industry, discuss about produce technique, and we always kept in touch throughout the years. And when the opportunity came with Leo, Karl was already closing Oscillate. And I've approached him and I said, look, Karl, we have this opportunity in the city to do something together, something a little bit different. And the first idea that we had with Leo was quite different from what it is now, unfortunately. The restaurant was meant to open 2 weeks before the pandemic, before the lockdown. So basically, all the plan that we had, all the renovation ideas that we had in plan to do for the restaurant, the branding and everything was basically compromised due to the 3 months of lockdown that we went through on the first lockdown, and we had to reopen. We had to reopen with a different, unfortunately, with a different budget, with a different concept, which wasn't ideal. It was tough. It was hard, but we've managed to reopen, and we went through a very tough year in the city. As you know, in between the two lockdown, the city has never came back to what it was before. So it was a quite bumpy, tough, very challenging year for both of us. Opening a restaurant, in between the two lockdown wasn't ideal, but we made it. We stick to it, and we made it work. It is still tough, but both of us believe in what we're doing and won't give up. To the first issue, the first problem we have. In the meantime, while we were opening Leo, I had issue with my business partner at Lumi, and we had to go into a dispute that lasted nearly 2 years. I bought out my business partner at Lumi, and at the same time we were trying to set up Leo and open Leo and try to make it successful. So it was a quite challenging couple of years for both of us, but especially for myself and the family and Lumi, because going through all those issues with the business partners, lawyers, and it's not easy. It had a big impact on myself, on my family, on my mental health. But we stick together, we stay strong, and we went through. And when we had the opportunity to do something with the start, we were initially a bit skeptical in going into the Momofuku site, because it's never easy, Anthony, how can I say it? It was big shoes to fill. It's never easy to take over a venue that has been so successful and so worldwide recognized. There's always a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation from customers. But at the same time, that was the past, and then we got to look at the present and the future. And I think we're very proud what we did ahead so far, and we're very looking forward, to the collaboration with the staff.
Well, tell us about what you're doing with that restaurant. What is the offering, and how is it different to some of the other things that you do?
Look, what both Karl and I wanted to do was, first of all, make sure that people that enter that space, they feel like they are stepping into a different space. And it was very tricky for us to deliver that, because the layout of the venue is quite tricky. So we came up with this idea of having three different areas where people can move around the venue and enjoy three different spaces. Because what the whole Momofuku, you either had dinner at the counter or at the table, and they were both two different kind of experiences. So everyone wanted to sit obviously at the counter, and for me the people dining at the table were kind of missing out. So what we decided with Karl, we say, how do we get guests to enjoy the whole venue, the whole experience? So we decided, to move people around, starting at the bar, then moving them on the main dining area, and then finish at the counter. So where every single guest get a taste of all the different spaces. The main dining area, we decided, to enclose it and make it a little bit more cozy, and we have projection going on the main dining area, which are somehow related to the products and to the dishes that we serve to the guest. In terms of the cuisine, both Karl and I wanted to highlight all the products that this country has to offer, and all the producer, grower, and fishermen that we've been collaborating over the years. So it's basically I don't know, you can probably call it just Australian cuisine, modern maybe Australian, but modern Australian, it's very vague and included a bit of everything. We just want to basically focus on the best that this country has to offer, and we apply all the technique and all the skill and all the knowledge that we have accumulated over the years. It's simple.
You've built an incredible array of offerings here in Australia since you've got here. What do you love about what you do?
Well, look, food has become my life, basically my passion. I dream about food. I live for food. It's what really how can I say, what really gives me joy. It's seeing people sitting down in the restaurant and having good time and enjoy their time out of their busy life. It's delivering joy, is delivering those moments of how can I say that? It's those moments of delivering something, an experience through food, joy through food. That's what pushes me, to wake up in the morning and being happy to what I do.
Well, Federico, absolutely hats off to you with what you've created so far in Australia, and look forward to seeing what you produce in the future as well. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks a lot.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.